So I made 3 games in 3 months and discovered how to eventually make my dream game. Let me explain. The most recent game I made, Insect, was made in 2 weeks. It's an arcade-like game where you try to kill as many enemies as possible. It was inspired by games like Vampire Survivor and 20 Minutes Till Dawn, with a more action-packed and melee-heavy experience. The game is very small, but that's not the reason it got finished so quickly. The reason it only took me 2 weeks to complete is because of my previous game, Magus Parus. The controls are very similar, the chunk loading works the same, the collision detection was copy-pasted, and even parts of the enemies are identical. And all of that is by design. You see, making games is hard. It's for good reason that a lot of game devs get burned out and eventually quit. The longer a game project is in development, the more chances it has to fail. In a way, this follows Murphy's Law. Developing your ambitiously huge dream game that would take you years to finish is most likely going to fail. On the other hand, working on a tiny project for a few weeks and finishing it is much more feasible. Keep your scope small. You've probably heard it before, it's nothing new. However, what I've learned over the past 3 months is actually something slightly different. I thought that once you finish a game, it's done. You complete it and that's it. But that is actually not how it works. Say you want to create an ambitiously huge game with procedural world generation, deep NPC interactions, highly customizable playstyles, rich combat system, mod support, multiplayer, and so on and so on. If you tried to make this game without any prior experience, you would most definitely fail. So instead, you first need to level up your skills until you can make a game of this size. Generally, this means creating many small games and gradually increasing the scope. It will take years, and you may find yourself struggling to find meaning in making these small games. At least that was the case for me. However, then I realized that you can do both. Work on your dream game while releasing small games. Instead of making a single huge game, you instead split it into its core game mechanics and create a game for each of them. So if a dream game has a rich combat system, you can start by making a small game that is only centered around combat. That's it, nothing else, just a player and some enemies. Win and lose condition and it's done. Then perhaps your next game is about procedural world generation. This game may have no enemies at all, just a player exploring a procedurally generated world with perhaps some kind of collectibles. That's it, no need to add any more features than the core. Eventually, once you've built games with your core mechanics, you can start to create bigger games. What about a game with deep NPC interactions in a procedurally generated world? Or a rich combat system with highly customizable playstyles in a multiplayer game? These games shouldn't be terribly hard to make, as you already know how to build all of these mechanics individually. All that is left to learn is how to put them together. Luckily for me, Bevy, the game engine I use, has this neat feature called plugins. It allows you to create a package consisting of game logic and objects which you can add to any project. They're game independent, so you can create a plugin in one game and add it to a completely different one. This allows for a crazy amount of reusability, not only in a single game, but across all of them. The main challenge I faced during the development of Instacle was actually not programming the game, but getting art for it. I can't do pixel art. I won't even try to learn it because I really don't want to. I enjoy programming and I enjoy putting games together. Obviously, this won't work for bigger games, but that's another reason why the many games approach works so good. Because the games I make are small, I'm able to use free assets while maintaining a somewhat consistent art style. Instacle has a lot of copy-pasted code from Magus Parus. I already know that this approach works, at least to some extent. My plan is to now continue this, build small games that will allow me to one day put them all together and create something bigger than the sum of their parts. Only time will tell whether or not I will be able to pull this off, but if you don't want to miss it, then like and subscribe. There are a lot more things I want to say about this topic, but as I'm still very inexperienced, I'll keep it at that. I will most likely revisit this in the future, once I've gained more experience and have some more credibility. Until then, thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.